Hi guys, the Benidorm Enthusiast here. Today's video is all about a possible upcoming new smoking ban, which has been hitting the front page news here in Spain and causing quite a stir. The main controversial point is the banning of smoking and vaping on outdoor terraces of restaurants, cafes and bars. This has been a highly debatable point, which could have a massive effect on the hospitality industry if it does become a reality. There are loads more areas covered in the new anti-smoking law, and I'll go through all of those on this video, as well as some interesting points which didn't make it into this draft of the new law, but which have been discussed previously. I'll also talk about the likelihood of this actually becoming a reality, when that might happen, and what the fines could be if and when it does happen. So first of all, let's just make this completely clear. This new anti-smoking law is not in effect yet, but it has been all over the news recently because it has progressed through one of the stages it needs to be in force in the future. On Tuesday, the Council of Ministers approved the draft bill, which expands smoke-free places and includes new measures against smoking and the regulation of tobacco-related products. It's a law promoted by the Ministry of Health and aims to protect public health and minors. The Minister of Health, Monica Garcia, has justified its implementation because new products have appeared and there are new needs, and has insisted that there is no healthy tobacco. The new law places vapes on the same level as conventional cigarettes and tobacco, so I'm going to be going through the places where smoking will be banned if this law gets passed. But remember, when I'm talking about smoking, that does mean vaping as well. There will be absolutely no differentiating between the two under the eyes of the law in the future. Here's the complete list of places where smoking will be prohibited. Public and private workplaces, except in open air spaces and in vehicles used by individuals on the occasion of or as a result of their work for others, except for their exclusively personal use. Centres and offices of public administrations and public law entities. Health centres, services or establishments, as well as in open air or covered spaces within their premises. Educational and training centres, university centres and adult training centres. Sports facilities, swimming pools for public use and venues for public events, both indoors and outdoors. Areas intended for direct customer service. Shopping centres, including large stores and galleries, except in open air spaces. Social care centres. Leisure or recreation centres, except in open air spaces. Cultural centres, reading rooms, exhibitions, libraries, conferences and museums. Party rooms, gambling establishments and those for general public use. Areas or establishments where food is produced, processed, prepared, tasted or sold. Elevators and lifts. Telephone booths, ATM enclosures and other such small enclosed public spaces. Bus stations, platforms and shelters. All spaces in suburban transport. Stations and means of railway transport. Ports, maritime transport and airports, except in open air spaces, aircraft originating and arriving in national territory and all flights of Spanish airlines. Service stations and the like, hotels, hostels and similar establishments except in outdoor spaces. However, permanent smoking rooms may be available providing they meet certain requirements. Bars, restaurants and other commercial catering establishments, both indoors and outdoors, that is, terraces. Theatres, cinemas, concerts and other public performances. Children's playgrounds and play areas or zones. And in all other closed spaces for personal or collective use. That's some list, isn't it? And actually a lot of those places, I just presumed that smoking was already banned, to be honest. I'm quite surprised that some of those places needed to be added. The big one, of course, which already has some people absolutely outraged, is the terraces of cafes, bars and restaurants. Strangely, beaches are not included, which I do find a little odd. There are a lot of smoke-free beaches in Spain, and as it stands, it's up to the local councils whether they prohibit smoking on the beach or not. In Benidorm, there is quite a lot of confusion around this. Smoking is not banned on the beach in Benidorm. There are some smoke-free areas on the beaches, specifically the accessible areas, which are the areas where those with limited mobility can get assistance, and you can get fined for smoking in those areas. But for the most part, when it comes to Benidorm's beaches, you are allowed to smoke on them. Our nearest smoke-free beach in this area is actually La Cala Finistrat, but we do see more and more smoke-free beaches in Spain every year. So I'm wondering why beaches have not been included in this new law. It doesn't really make sense to me. Also excluded are two main measures which were pushed for when Monica Garcia took over as the health minister, and those are price increases and plain packaging. These two things were left out on the new bill due to an apparent lack of agreement within the government. However, this has been highly criticised, with many suggesting that they've simply caved to pressure from tobacco companies. Now, as I mentioned earlier, these new laws and bans are not limited to conventional cigarettes, but also extend to electronic cigarettes, both with and without nicotine, and vapes. The law will impose the same restrictions as tobacco on these new products, and it will also include herbal products such as shisha pipes or devices for consuming heated products, but nicotine patches are exempt from these restrictions. The sale of tobacco is already prohibited to minors, but now the draft bill also bans the consumption of tobacco and related products, i.e. vapes for example, for this segment of the population. Minors who smoke in any form or consume nicotine patches may be fined. Furthermore, the sale and supply of single-use or disposable e-cigarettes, which have gained popularity among young people in recent years, is prohibited. In addition to this reason, the Ministry of Health justifies its ban on the impact these products have on the environment. It is a particularly serious or harmful product for the environment, Monica Garcia argued at the press conference following the Council of Ministers, also referring to the fact that these products hook young people to smoking because they're cheap, with sweet flavours and eye-catching packaging. So it's bye-bye to single-use vapes. The new law will require those responsible for spaces where smoking is prohibited, such as restaurateurs, to post visible signs on their premises informing them of the ban. Furthermore, the new regulation will also prohibit all types of advertising for tobacco and tobacco-derived products, both direct and indirect. Tobacco companies will also be prohibited from sponsoring activities, events or content. Their brands will not be permitted to appear in publications, festival or cultural or sporting activities, whether in person or online. So let's cut to the crunch. What is the likelihood of this new law being brought in, and when could that happen? Well, it still has a long way to go before it becomes a reality. What the Council of Ministers did this Tuesday was approve the preliminary draft of the anti-smoking law, which is now open for public hearing, meaning that companies, communities and industries can submit their comments. When that period ends, the Ministry must re-examine the text and introduce or deny any amendments it deems appropriate. Once the final text is complete, it must then go back to the Council of Ministers for approval again, and after obtaining approval, it will then progress to the next stage. It will only come into force if it secures sufficient support in Parliament. That's the important bit. Now, there is still some opposition to the new law. I think they may well have to make some amendments to get it passed. Whether the terraces will be one of them, only time will tell. But the general consensus is that eventually there will be a new law passed which will restrict smoking in some shape or form. Realistically, we're looking at a good few months still before we get to the stage of it being passed by Parliament. Maybe more, even if there are more amendments to be made. So it's probably going to be well into 2026 at the earliest. What would the sanctions be for breaking the law? Well, the fines could be anything up to €600,000, according to the Health Minister, but obviously the fines will have to correlate with the seriousness of the offence, with much lower fines than the maximum for less serious offences against this law. So what do you guys think about all that? It does sound like they really mean business with this, doesn't it? I know smoking is a topic which divides opinions massively, but I'd love to hear all your thoughts in the comments. I've already seen some headlines saying that the Brits would boycott Spain if this were to come into effect. Would it stop you coming to Spain if you can't smoke on a terrace? Or would it encourage you to visit more? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for more updates on this subject, and also check us out on Facebook, Instagram and TikTok at the Benidorm Enthusiast. Stay positive and stay safe.